an 84-year-old mother vanished without a trace, snatched from her peaceful Catalina Mountains estate, plunging NBC anchor Savannah Guthrie's family into a nightmare, happening under the dark Arizona skies late on January 31st, 2026, bearing all the hallmarks of a flawless hit. A fact-seasoned investigator, Jim Clemente, confirmed publicly. Renowned behavior expert Greg McCraw also shared his professional insights publicly. Dozens of veteran investigators broke down the tactical brilliance behind this horrific act during widespread media and podcast interviews. Every single one echoed the same terrifying reality. This wasn't some random accident, but a carefully orchestrated scheme. They handpicked their prey, selected the perfect moment, and possessed such intimate knowledge of Nancy's routine that an inside informant feels certain today. I'll break down the precise meaning behind these chilling expert insights. 5 verified facts regarding the perpetrator's inside knowledge, backed by police and veteran analysts, completely shatter the random prowler theory. None of this is mere guesswork, as authorities have documented every terrifying detail officially. By the time we reach the final point concerning the surveillance system, a confusing subject for many, you'll see exactly why detectives are looking inward. Right before we dive in, if true crime deep dives are your jam, please smash that like button, hit subscribe, and share this breakdown with someone who needs it. Let me be brutally honest, because the details discussed today extend far beyond solving just the Nancy Guthrie missing persons investigation. The perpetrator's masterclass in bypassing security measures flawlessly and keeping a household totally quiet, and exploiting personal schedules, holds vital lessons that everyone tuning in desperately needs to learn. Spread the word immediately, not merely for justice, but to protect your loved ones. So let's begin. Prior to unpacking those 5 crucial points, we absolutely must dismantle the popular narrative that many folks still cling to the stranger hypothesis. This absurd notion claims a total outsider with absolutely zero ties to the household, lacking any geographical link or personal history with Nancy, somehow stumbled upon her residence blindly. They supposedly picked the perfect evening, breezed right in, and ghosted away with an 84-year-old woman without triggering a single sensor, never waking a soul nearby, and leaving 0 breadcrumbs for detectives despite 52 days of searching and countless tips. This is exactly why such assumptions fall apart instantly, since her street sees almost 0 traffic, nestled high up in a remarkably quiet sector just north of Tucson, wrapped tightly in native brush and cacti. Nobody just casually strolls through there around 2 in the dark by accident. Locals would instantly spot any suspicious outsider. A sentiment former federal investigator Steve Moore passionately emphasized publicly. The region remains intensely isolated, meaning anyone traveling down those roads had a very specific purpose. There are absolutely no shortcuts here, meaning 0 chance of accidental visits. Bringing us to the sheriff. Back on the 13th of March, the regional police chief faced the networks and explicitly stated that investigators confidently understand the attacker's motives and strongly suspect it was a targeted hit, despite lacking 100% absolute certainty on the record. Authorities emphasize they know it was a heavily focused attack. Focused is the key takeaway, completely destroying any opportunist theories. Over 40 days into the hunt, the top detective publicly declared it a premeditated strike, while veteran behavioral expert Greg McCraw echoed those sentiments. He noted that the perpetrator absolutely never merely stumbled onto her porch by accident, while seasoned ex-agent Jim Clemente went on an 8th of March podcast to dissect the tactical expertise shown before, throughout, and long after the abduction. Such deep familiarity screams of a highly calculated, heavily researched ambush. Nobody uses those terms for random drifters, but rather for someone who obsessively stalked her routine, personally or through a source. Now, let's unpack the exact secrets this monster held. We will cover 5 chilling details, beginning with a revelation destroying any doubts about random chance. The dog passed. The victim owned a tiny dark terrier, but sadly, the animal perished shortly before January 31st, 2026. Almost nobody mentioned this crucial puzzle piece, leaving it out of front-page news and official police statements entirely. You have to dig deep into obscure articles and local accounts, casually tossed aside like a minor triviality. Yet it actually serves as the most critical tactical advantage in the investigation. The reasoning is simple. Considering that canines serve as humanity's oldest and most foolproof alarm system, forget about their bite, it is their sheer volume that truly saves lives. Canines possess supernatural awareness, picking up faint whispers and reacting to creeping shadows long before a handle even turns. One frantic howl at 1 o'clock in the morning, and Nancy would snap completely awake. Porch lights flash on next door, instantly threatening the deadly quiet the abductor desperately required from 1:47 to roughly 2:28 in the morning. That perfect timeline vanishes completely. Retired Puma County Lieutenant and former SWAT team commander Bob Keary addressed this exact terrifying scenario during a recorded broadcast in early March, passionately debating whether Nancy's furry protector could have drastically altered her grim fate. Imagine she still kept her terrier back then, and it just kept making endless noise. Would such a detail actually shift the events? Or is that purely wishful thinking? His response left zero room for doubt, stating he believed the idea made perfect sense. He explained, "Criminals attempting these kinds of grabs absolutely despise any extra spotlight during the act. Whether you own a tiny noisemaker or a massive guard animal, both attract unwanted eyes, which remains a kidnapper's absolute worst nightmare while pulling off a crime. Therefore, keeping an ordinary vocal pup around the house works wonders. Or perhaps a massive hound with a booming chest, any creature capable of turning heads. It completely rattles intruders, ideally spooking them enough to sprint back into their vehicles and flee, giving homeowners a massive tactical edge. Such unexpected disruptions force criminals out of their comfort zones, leading them to ultimately decide, this trouble isn't worth my freedom, time to bail out." Which proves that K9 served as her ultimate biological guardian. Forget hardwired tech or monthly video services. This breathing sentinel refused to be muted. Hackers could not bypass it by cutting wires. Yet the creature was missing when the attacker approached at 1:47 in the morning. Once the main security lens died, absolutely nothing growled, panicked, or caused a scene. Absolute stillness swallowed the property, exactly as he anticipated. Which brings us to a terrifying puzzle who told him the pet died. Losing a furry friend never makes local headlines, shows up on search engines, or lands in government databases. Such intimate heartbreak only spreads via private voice chats or quiet afternoon check-ins. It slips out over morning coffee chats, requiring a deep, personal connection or a direct link to someone in her inner circle. It required a trusted confidant closely tied to her inner circle. Someone fully aware that her fierce little terrier, famous for chasing every passing vehicle, had sadly passed away and lost its voice forever. Random stalkers watching from the pavement merely spot the delivery post, glance at the glass panes, or spot the digital lens. An outsider possesses zero knowledge about a missing canine. This abductor held insider facts rather than distant observations, and such tactical data always traces back to a specific informant. Take the first glaring fact: a deceased pet left an unnerving, vacant, quiet, echoing through the halls, creating a perfect void that this predator absolutely relied upon. Point number 2 involves his flawless navigation. Since investigators discovered clear damage around Nancy Guthrie's access points, police insiders swiftly informed the Los Angeles Times that detectives uncovered crimson stains alongside a violently breached entrance point shortly following her mysterious vanishing. However, this specific tragedy defies standard logic. Smashing through her barriers fails to disprove the mole theory, instead heavily backing the concept for several key reasons. Consider the reality of breaching this specific estate. Considering her residence boasted heavy digital monitoring and multiple surveillance units, she resided within a tightly bound community where locals easily recognize foreign noises echoing through the darkness. Despite all this, sirens remained silent. Surrounding families slept soundly, and no furry protector raised hell. The infiltrator who shattered that doorway operated with surgical precision and intense familiarity, keeping the extraction completely under wraps. These actions hardly fit the blueprint of an amateur thief stumbling onto a bad target. Petty crooks avoid loud struggles at all costs, vastly preferring victims without any defenses. They seek unlatched vehicles, pitch-black mansions, and estates lacking basic protective measures entirely. Opportunistic criminals absolutely refuse to invade a digitally monitored residence situated inside an observant subdivision, especially to extract a well-connected woman at 2 in the morning. Unless they intimately understand exactly how their violent intrusion will unfold, a final chilling detail remains hidden. This particular clue slipped past nearly every major media broadcast covering the mysterious abduction. During a media briefing on February 5th, Sheriff Nanos verified that Nancy employed domestic workers who maintained constant, intimate access to her private residence on a daily basis. These employees intimately understood the floor plans, her personal schedules, and the quiet flow of her household, which is simply an observation rather than blame. Yet, this undeniable truth was officially documented by the primary detective on the case. Let us get one thing absolutely straight right now: figuring out who held regular access to Nancy's world is the entire ballgame, not just some minor, easily dismissible footnote. It dictates everything. Ex-FBI profiler Maureen O'Connell dropped a bombshell theory regarding porch bloodstains, arguing the victim never left on her own 2 feet but was physically hauled right out of there. O'Connell suspects a 2-man lift team handled transport, pointing out distinct spatter patterns alongside the incredibly chilling absence of any empty spaces or visible shoe tracks. Picture a pair of intruders hauling her away while her head drooped to one side. That awkward angle caused bleeding right at that exact spot, making me think they had her bundled tight before struggling with the exterior latch. Navigating those steps likely caused her neck to shift, spilling a crimson trail, while a duo literally handled all the heavy manual lifting. We are talking about a flawlessly synchronized, pitch-black snatch and grab pulled off by total property experts. The intruders who breached that threshold on January 31st held a mental floor plan and marched straight toward the main bedroom. They glided across floorboards with such practiced stealth and speed that the entire neighborhood slept right through the brutal nightmare. These phantoms knew the pet was gone and the security system was effectively rendered useless. They banked on a precise time frame before discovery, proving busted locks point to calculated strategy. Smashing inside was merely step 1 of an intricate playbook defined by total stillness. Speed. Pulling off a spotless getaway meant studying their target obsessively, bringing us to Revelation 3, deafness. Back on March 8th, veteran federal investigator Jim Clemente jumped on the Brian Entin Investigates show to trade theories with his former colleague. The duo dissected every angle, zeroing in on the victim's sheer helplessness. They mapped out kidnapping tactics, questioning exactly why this elderly woman sat as a perfect mark at 2 in the morning. Clemente dropped a massive clue that traditional media blindly glossed over as trivial fluff, stating verbatim, for the absolute public record in his own words, "I suspect her severe deafness played a role, given she definitely removed her high-tech earpieces before bed, leaving her totally, incredibly defenseless." He heavily emphasized her auditory impairment and daily reliance on that equipment. These specialized amplifiers were removed before sleep, turning her into an incredibly easy mark. Stripping away her primary sense created a totally fatal trap. Pause and let the gravity sink deep into your bones, because the former Fed is not just giving a medical update. He highlights a massive tactical blind spot, proving the attackers deliberately weaponized her disability and baked it into their dark master plan long before setting foot on that specific property. Let us break down the real-world terror. Stripped of her amplifiers, the woman lost all capacity to catch warning signs like heavy boots outside her bedroom door. Every squeaky floorboard and groaning hinge went totally unnoticed, meaning the infiltrator preyed on way more than just a heavily slumbering victim. They breached the sanctuary of a senior citizen who was plunged into absolute, impenetrable silence. This gave monsters a massive buffer that typical homeowners would never ever allow. Looking at how surgically smooth the break-in went down without waking a single soul nearby, the crew absolutely exploited that massive acoustic advantage. O'Connell dialed up the horror factor even more with her assessment. She speculated violence sparked precisely because the deafened victim completely failed to obey, violently shouted orders she literally could not hear or comprehend in the slightest bit. Put yourself in her terrified shoes during those agonizing seconds, waking up disoriented in total blackness, completely deaf to masked strangers who ruthlessly banked on her exact helpless state. This brings up the ultimate logic bomb that shatters random attack narratives completely. Why would an outsider know about her invisible handicap? Furthermore, what street thug guesses a bedtime routine? Especially since tiny earpieces remain hidden from curbside stalkers peering through the dark bushes. Telephoto lenses cannot catch them, and they dodge every single government database. Web sleuthing reveals absolutely nothing. You only clock this detail by sharing meals and intimately watching her fiddle with the volume. Intimate knowledge like that comes from a live-in nurse assisting with evening routines. That intel leaks from chatty maids working daily shifts, or relatives casually dropping the tidbit over morning coffee and bagels. Only a trusted member of this 84-year-old's inner social ring would completely understand her absolute daily reliance on the auditory technology. On paper, the medical device whispers, while it sounds incredibly boring to laymen, this tactical goldmine completely destroys the random drifter hypothesis, proving the cold-blooded predator banked entirely on her midnight deafness before launching the brutal home invasion scheme. We are miles past mere lucky coincidences. A calculating mastermind profiled her exact physical weaknesses and engineered the absolutely perfect trap to exploit them. Stop scrolling for a second, tell me exactly where you are tuning in from today. So leave a comment with your city right now. People across the entire planet are tracking this mystery. Let me find out precisely how massive our true crime family has truly become. Share your hometown or your nation down below in the chat. We need to visualize the incredible global network we have built together. Reason 4, 0 visits before sunrise. They brought Nancy Guthrie back to her residence around 9:50 in the evening on January 31st. The grandmother enjoyed a totally normal family dinner over at her child Annie's place close by. Her daughter's husband, Tommaso Chioni, safely drove her home. The lady stepped indoors, and folks assumed they would see her again on Sunday morning. Yet, she completely missed her online congregation meeting. At that specific moment, panic set in for her relatives. Somebody from the congregation actually phoned her kids after noticing her highly unusual absence. Family members arrived near 11 in the morning to inspect her house, scoured the residence along with the yard, but discovered 0 traces of the woman. Near 12 o'clock, relatives dialed 911 to declare her vanished. So let us calculate. Between the second she stepped inside her entryway until people noticed her absence, roughly 14 hours passed. 14 hours where 0 phone calls were planned whatsoever. Nobody intended to swing by. Not a single person possessed an excuse to approach her porch or peer inside her glass panes. 14 straight hours of completely unbothered, tactical liberty. 14 hours to strike, relocate the victim, and vanish toward a boundary located 60 miles southward. Now, you must ponder this crucial detail: who actually recognized this timeline? Definitely not a random person. It was not some drifter passing by the subdivision occasionally who figured the property appeared vulnerable. An outsider merely notices vehicles arriving and departing. An unknown suspect could possibly realize an older lady resides solitarily inside that structure. However, an outsider absolutely fails to realize, and practically has no way of discovering, that her weekend morning routine includes a digital sermon. Skipping that particular digital gathering guarantees a rapid emergency welfare inspection. They would never guess the time frame between roughly 9:50 on Saturday night until dawn remains entirely untouched. Such intimate data solely exists within an incredibly tight group of confidants. Her kids clearly understand her weekend schedule. Her religious congregation understands the pattern. Frequent house guests, those individuals breaking bread beside the lady, enjoyed games at her table, and witnessed her normal weekly flow. All grasped these habits. The abductor definitely understood this. The culprit realized his deadline was dawn. The attacker strategized using these facts. Furthermore, such preparation demands deep personal insights found purely within an individual's private sphere, not from an outsider's gaze. This is not mere guessing. It is simple math. Executing this crime demanded a highly precise time frame. Such an exact time frame relied entirely on intimate familiarity regarding her daily itinerary. This deep familiarity meant somebody close leaked the details. Detectives verified her heart monitor ceased communicating with her tech gadgets near 2:28 in the morning. Her porch surveillance disconnected exactly at 1:47 after midnight. The assault consumed roughly 39 minutes. 39 brief minutes to breach, overpower, abduct, and evaporate completely. Then followed endless quiet hours before anyone attempted searching. 4 distinct facts: a dead animal, a kidnapper holding flawless entry instructions, a victim unable to hear him breach the walls, and a specific time frame that purely an insider could confidently exploit. Let us briefly pause now, prior to exploring point number 5. Primarily since this 5th detail belongs in a completely separate realm from our previous discussions. Points 1 through 4 might technically become obvious to a shady character lingering around her social periphery. Perhaps a distant friend, a local repairman, or anyone holding limited secondhand clues regarding her daily routine and overall existence. Detail number 5 utterly defies any simple outsider explanation. Fact 5 demands a perpetrator who did not merely observe her habits, but purposefully and meticulously involved themselves in the actual plot meant to destroy her. However, prior to revealing that secret, I absolutely need a quick check-in if you remain engaged with today's episode right at this exact moment. Leave a comment immediately that says, "I am fully present." I desperately need to identify our loyal squad, the individuals tracking everything since minute 1, those genuinely dedicated to cracking this horrific tragedy. So write down that you are watching below, because I genuinely review all responses. Man, those hidden recording devices are wild. The federal agents just verified a shocking truth upon extracting hidden files from the victim's residential surveillance network. Hidden lenses consistently monitored the estate, filming the swimming deck, the rear lawn, the side passages, which society completely ignored. They never appeared during initial news broadcasts, nor within official police department press updates, nor anywhere throughout those preliminary broadcasting weeks, while the media obsessively dissected every single element of her residence on a daily basis. The surveillance worked. Someone securely mounted them. The devices recorded her yard continuously without civilian awareness. Federal agents, collaborating alongside civilian tech experts throughout the chaotic aftermath following her sudden kidnapping ordeal, managed to extract hidden video stills from the hardware, discovering crucial visual evidence previously inaccessible during the first sweep. Chilling sensor-triggered snapshots began surfacing during the weeks right before January 31st. Strangers kept prowling through the side and rear gardens before the kidnapping actually occurred. Federal agents alongside the Pima County Sheriff verified their ongoing examination of these files. Now brace yourself for the single unnerving term detectives uttered after reviewing what those lenses actually recorded during Nancy's sudden disappearance. Absolute silence. Every single lens monitoring that estate recorded absolutely 0 during the kidnapping. 0 frames, 0 sensor alerts, and 0 pictures surfaced throughout the crucial time frame starting at 1:47 a.m. and roughly 2:28 a.m. An insider familiar with the probe gave ABC News one simple descriptor: weird. Weird indeed. You have a residence loaded with security lenses. Lenses monitoring every angle. Lenses specifically mounted to document any activity happening inside and outside that perimeter. Yet when they became crucial, they recorded nothing. An insider labeled the situation weird. Just imagine the severity required for an experienced detective handling a federal probe to say that they did not pick that adjective by chance. Then the mystery deepened. Throughout the nearby residential streets, at residences directly bordering the estate, locals noticed their personal surveillance videos for that exact evening had vanished entirely, flagged as inaccessible, erased during that vital time frame. Detectives representing both federal agencies and the local sheriff canvassed the community. They deliberately questioned locals regarding bizarre internet dropouts happening near February 1st. They ultimately discovered a vandalized electrical cabinet, sitting just down the street from the primary residence, an electrical enclosure tied into the broadband network, a complete blackout, which potentially disabled security systems throughout the entire vicinity exactly as the kidnapping unfolded. Consider the tactical implications of such an act. Surveillance devices monitoring the estate, including hidden lenses nobody else knew about, recorded absolutely 0 during the attack. Lenses across the nearby community wiped clean during that exact time frame. Detectives currently investigate if this was purposeful. If a perpetrator purposefully destroyed the local broadband network right before executing their strike, this wasn't merely hiding a porch lens behind foliage or simply kicking a deadbolt open. They completely neutralized an entire community's capacity to film live events. You cannot orchestrate such destruction via laptop. This transcends digital hacking entirely. You cannot find these details on property websites or compile them via Instagram posts. This requires physical legwork entirely. A perpetrator literally strolled through that neighborhood, studied the vantage points, and charted every lens. They pinpointed the network hardware, ultimately crafting an anti-surveillance strategy based directly upon those physical discoveries. Federal agents currently suspect these physical scouting trips occurred during a minimum of 2 distinct days, near January 11th, roughly 20 days prior to the kidnapping. Local resident Aldine Meister glanced outside her restroom glass while getting ready and spotted a complete stranger roaming the area. She recalled the exact timing since it happened right past her January 8th birthday celebration. The individual strolled sluggishly, shielding his face, slouching heavily, wearing regular casual apparel instead of athletic attire, and missing proper jogging sneakers, definitely lacking the typical wardrobe expected within such a bustling suburban area during those hours. His pace felt sluggish yet intentional, and upon crossing the pathway toward the target residence, he stared deeply at the property. She immediately alerted her spouse. She also mentioned it to her mom. It deeply unsettled her. However, she ignored it until February 1st, when Nancy vanished and Meister phoned federal agents. Once detectives listened to her testimony, they executed a major tactical pivot. Agents accessed the local security portal, instructing locals inside the target zone to review their recordings near January 11th. Detectives made an incredibly precise request. Instead of requesting general suspicious clips from the previous 30 days, they highlighted January 11th. That day held immense value. Later published by reporter Brian Enton on March 16th and verified through Newsweek alongside News Nation. Detectives broadened their search parameters entirely. Agents started requesting residential video files regarding January 24th too, exactly 7 days preceding the attack, establishing another timeline. Another potential trip into the subdivision, representing another sweep executed by an intruder charting the landscape, locating critical hardware, essentially constructing the tactical framework required to facilitate the January 31st incident successfully. Both highlighted days landed during weekends. Each moment fits perfectly within the time frame. Detectives label as advanced tactical scouting. Furthermore, nobody has officially clarified why authorities consider those 2 specific days so crucial to the case. Yet, the sheer trajectory of this manhunt paints an incredibly vivid picture. Make no mistake, federal agents demanding neighborhood surveillance from 2 exact days, 3 weeks before a kidnapping, means the blind guessing is totally over. Investigators are hunting down evidence they are absolutely certain exists, and veteran behavioral analysts agree exactly on what these clues reveal. We are absolutely not dealing with a random chance encounter or a sudden spur-of-the-moment decision. Forget the idea of a simple burglary gone wrong, because the perpetrator meticulously constructed this plot over several weeks by picking a victim and memorizing her routines. The suspect charted the estate, pinpointing critical utilities that authorities suspect were sabotaged. Finally, during a late January weekend evening as an 84-year-old mother returned from dining out, the assailant unleashed the perfectly orchestrated attack. One vital clue serves as the ultimate linchpin connecting everything: the primary entryway surveillance lens, prominently featured in that released federal video, was not simply obscured. In the recording, the disguised intruder initially attempted to gently strike the device loose. Failing to pry it loose, the assailant grabbed leaves from a nearby planter to block the view, proving an alternate strategy existed to blind the system. The suspect approached the entrance fully aware of the surveillance setup and arrived prepared with backup methods to bypass the technology. Current findings from the ongoing probe demonstrate the culprit possessed advanced knowledge of the supplementary security lenses. These undisclosed monitors definitely needed blinding prior to the assault moving forward. Let us examine 5 incredibly specific factors of this case. We are examining a deceased pet, an abductor wielding precise access knowledge, a hearing-impaired target missing the breach, and a completely undisturbed operational time frame. Furthermore, a comprehensive video network completely failed. Even highly classified lenses recorded absolutely zero footage during the abduction. A criminal does not achieve such flawless results by mere accident or sheer luck. Elite criminals architect, if to finance, and deploy these stealth operations with terrifying accuracy, resulting in a 52-day federal manhunt, generating countless tips, but absolutely zero arrests. Pulling off a feat of this magnitude absolutely requires an informant feeding critical intelligence directly from Nancy Guthrie's personal inner circle. What type of driving force actually justifies such obsessive logistical preparation? Forget simple theft. Common thieves absolutely refuse to conduct extensive surveillance missions. Petty crooks ignore auditory device usage patterns, avoid tracking religious service routines, and never monitor the passing of household pets. Smash and grab thieves merely snatch whatever fits inside a sack during a lightning-fast sweep of the premises. These rapid strike amateurs definitely skip diagramming electrical panels or uncovering hidden surveillance equipment. This was hardly some spontaneous assault. The leading county sheriff explicitly confirmed the attack was highly intentional. Retired behavioral analyst Greg McCraw agreed entirely. The assailant skipped knocking blindly, purposefully selecting both the specific prey and the exact execution window. Every single detail was meticulously curated. Consequently, only a pair of distinct incentives properly align with such rigorous advanced groundwork. The primary incentive involves wealth transfer or asset domination. Some pending deal practically mandated erasing Nancy Guthrie from the picture, forcing her into submission, or using her as leverage. Numerous digital currency extortion attempts demanding millions of dollars from journalistic outlets strongly support an underlying monetary objective. However, simple greed fails to answer every question, especially regarding a vital clue largely ignored by the major broadcasting networks. The extortion messages never reached the victims' relatives initially. The kidnapper shockingly bypassed them to notify the press instead. Various news stations obtained these threats before Savannah ever did. A local Tucson broadcast channel intercepted a physical note. Meanwhile, an entertainment outlet caught a remarkably complex electronic blackmail message. The famous anchor and her relatives discovered the financial ultimatum through breaking news headlines rather than private. Direct communication. Consider the implications. An operative aiming for a silent payday and a safe hostage return would undoubtedly establish a secure, private dialogue with relatives. Extortionists typically bargain strictly in the shadows, far away from police scrutiny. Standard financially motivated abductions function exactly like that. Yet, despite seemingly wanting cash, this particular culprit intentionally alerted the journalists. The profound emotional agony of an incredibly famous morning television broadcast anchor became undeniable. Her incredibly familiar face dominated the airwaves continuously, ultimately forcing her to take an extended, highly publicized leave of absence from broadcasting. Viewers watched her weeping openly on television broadcasts, desperately pleading for her mother's safety before a massive live audience. The distressed siblings united on digital platforms to directly address the captor, emphatically declaring they would happily drain their financial accounts. The entire ordeal remained highly visible and aggressively publicized. Had capital been the sole priority, manufacturing such a massive circus simply added unneeded liabilities to the mission. The frenzy attracted federal strike teams, intense press scrutiny, and placed a staggering $1.2 million bounty on the perpetrator. A strict profiteer would dodge those immense risks entirely by demanding absolute silence. Instead, this mastermind deliberately amplified the chaos. This story forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. The greatest dangers in life are not always random, they are often built quietly, piece by piece, by someone who knows us better than we realize. It is not just about crime, but about trust, vulnerability, and the invisible details we overlook every day. One powerful lesson is the risk of overexposure. Our routines, habits, and personal struggles may seem harmless, but in the wrong hands, they become a blueprint. The idea that someone could learn so much from daily schedules to private weaknesses reminds us to be more mindful of what we share and who we trust. It also highlights the importance of protecting the vulnerable. Age, health conditions, or isolation should never become silent disadvantages. Instead, they should inspire stronger support systems, deeper communication, and more active care from family and community. Most importantly, this story teaches us that awareness is an act of love. Paying attention, asking questions, and staying connected are not signs of fear, they are signs of responsibility. In a world where threats can hide behind familiarity, the greatest protection we can offer is not just security systems, but human presence, vigilance, and genuine care for one another.